The storm didn't just fall from the sky, it tore through it. The night itself seemed angry, as though the heavens were punishing the earth for something it refused to confess. Rain lashed the forest, beating against the ancient oaks until they groaned under its fury. The river below churned, swollen and wild, foaming like a wounded beast thrashing against invisible chains. And somewhere in that chaos, running barefoot through mud and shadows, was Elara. Her breath came in ragged bursts, each inhale sharp enough to slice her lungs. The cold stung her face, but she barely felt it. All she could hear was her own heartbeat hammering in her chest, and behind it, the distant echo of horns. The sound was cruel, rhythmic, hungry. The hunters were still on her trail. Branches tore at her skin as she sprinted through the underbrush. Her cloak was long gone, ripped away hours ago by the storm or the chase, she couldn't tell which anymore. Blood streaked her calf from a wound she didn't remember getting, but pain was a luxury she couldn't afford. Every step was survival. Every breath was a rebellion. Thunder cracked overhead, splitting the sky open for just a second, and in that flash, the world revealed its madness. The forest glowed white, every droplet of rain suspended in time, and then darkness swallowed it all again. Elara didn't stop running. She couldn't. She knew what happened to those who stopped. Behind her, voices rose through the storm, low, feral, half-human. The hunters weren't ordinary men. They were something else, something ancient and cruel, sworn to track creatures like her. Half-blood. Flameborn. Cursed. They'd chased her for nights now, driven by whispers that her heart carried power older than the moon itself. Her lungs burned. Her legs trembled. The world tilted. Then, her foot caught on a root slick with rain. She stumbled. Fell. The ground gave way beneath her, a muddy slope slick as glass. She tumbled down, helpless, through roots and stones and rain until the roar of the river drowned everything. And then, cold. Bone-deep, merciless cold as the current swallowed her. The water dragged her under like hands desperate to claim her. She fought, gasping, clawing for air, her vision flashing white, then black. Her fingers scraped something rough, rock, maybe, and she forced herself upward, breaking the surface with a gasp that burned her throat. For a moment, she just floated there, caught between panic and exhaustion. The rain felt like needles on her skin. The forest around her blurred, ghostly under the moon's red glare. She tried to reach the shore, but something caught her eye, a shape half buried in the reeds along the bank. At first, she thought it was a body. But then it moved. A low, guttural sound rolled through the storm, a growl, deep and broken. A wolf. Massive. Silver-furred, its coat darkened with blood and river water. Elara froze. Every instinct screamed at her to swim the other way, to save herself, but something about that creature stopped her. It wasn't the danger, it was the eyes. Even through the chaos, she saw them. Golden. Faintly glowing. The kind of eyes that looked right through flesh and bone and into the soul. The wolf was tangled in broken reeds, one of its legs caught, its body trembling. Its breathing was shallow, labored. It was dying. She hesitated, heart slamming against her ribs. Helping it was madness. She was barely alive herself. But something inside her, something she hadn't felt in years, tightened. A pull. A strange, aching pull that made no sense. She moved closer. Each stroke through the icy water felt heavier than the last. By the time she reached the creature, her fingers were numb and her breath came in desperate gasps. The wolf lifted its head weakly, baring teeth in warning. Elara whispered, her voice trembling. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The wolf's growl faltered. Its eyes, luminous and tired, locked with hers. And for one impossible heartbeat, the storm faded. The sound of the river, the rain, the wind, all of it vanished. Only those eyes remained. Elara reached out, shaking, and touched its fur. The warmth that met her fingers was wrong, too warm, pulsing, alive in a way that didn't belong to a creature bleeding out by the river. Then came the pain. A shock tore through her hand, racing up her arm like lightning. She gasped, trying to pull away, but her body refused to listen. Her palms glowed faintly against his wounds. The air around them seemed to shimmer. A whisper, faint, ancient, slid through her mind. You cannot run from what you are. Elara's heart stopped. The wolf let out a broken sound, a whimper that carried the weight of 1,000 storms. She pressed harder against his wound, not even understanding why. Her tears mixed with rain as she whispered, "Don't die, please, just hold on." Another pulse. Stronger. It ripped through her chest, setting her veins on fire. The river around them surged, waves slamming against the shore as if answering some hidden call. The scent of ozone filled the air. Then, silence. The wolf went still. Elara's breath hitched. Panic clawed at her throat. No, 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 come on, breathe. She pushed against his chest, desperate, sobbing, not even noticing that her hands were glowing brighter now, silver light bleeding through her skin. A heartbeat. Not hers. The wolf's chest rose. Once. Twice. And then, his eyes opened again. The gold had deepened, molten, almost human. They locked onto her as the storm finally broke, the rain easing into a trembling drizzle. Elara fell back in the shallows, shaking. Her whole body ached. Her skin burned from the strange energy that had erupted through her. She didn't understand what she'd done. She didn't understand him. All she knew was that something impossible had happened in that river. And that nothing about her life, or his, would ever be the same. The wolf staggered to his feet, slow and unsteady. The water dripped from his silver fur in shimmering rivulets. He turned to her once more, as if memorizing her face. Then he limped into the forest, vanishing into mist and moonlight. Elara sat there, trembling, unable to move. The rain returned to a soft whisper, wrapping the world in eerie calm. Her palms still glowed faintly, the warmth fading like the last ember of a dying fire. She looked down at her reflection in the river, at the faint mark glowing on her wrist, one she had never seen before. It pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Somewhere deep in the woods, a howl rose, a sound so powerful it silenced even the storm. She should have run. She should have been afraid. But instead, she felt something else. Recognition. As if that cry had been calling her name all along. Her voice was barely a whisper when she finally spoke to the dark. "What have I done?" The river gave no answer. The wind only carried her words away, back toward the mountains where the wolves reigned. And far beyond the forest, in a realm where old bloodlines stirred and crowns waited for their rightful heirs, something ancient awoke. A curse broken. A bond born. And a destiny that would burn brighter than the silver flame itself. If stories of courage, fate, and forbidden love stir something within you, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where every heartbeat tells a legend. The fire was the first thing she felt, its warmth licking gently against her skin, a soft crackle that broke through the haze of her dreams. The scent of smoke and pine filled her lungs, replacing the sharp taste of river water that still haunted her tongue. Her body ached as though she had been rebuilt from fragments, every muscle heavy, her veins thrumming with the faint echo of something she couldn't name. When she opened her eyes, she wasn't sure where she was. The world had gone quiet. The storm had bled away into silence, the kind that holds its breath after chaos. Moonlight spilled through the open mouth of a cave, silver against the damp stone. The fire burned low in the center, feeding on a ring of dry wood that hadn't existed in her memory. She sat up too quickly. Pain shot through her ribs, and she winced, clutching her side. That's when she saw him. He sat across from her, motionless, calm, like a shadow that had decided to take form. His cloak was dark, heavy with moisture, yet he looked untouched by the cold. His left arm was wrapped in rough linen, the faint stain of blood seeping through. The firelight cast sharp edges across his face, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. But his eyes, those eyes. Gold. The same gold she had seen in the river. Elara froze. He wasn't supposed to be real. The wolf, bleeding, dying, sinking beneath the storm, had been a creature. A beast. Yet here he was, sitting before her, human in form, but nothing about him felt ordinary. The air itself bent around him, charged with the same strange current she had felt in the water. Before she could speak, he did. His voice was low, the kind that carried authority without effort. Elara of the Silver Line. Her name sounded strange on his tongue, older somehow, spoken like a word that carried power. You shouldn't have touched me. Her breath hitched. The way he said it, it wasn't a warning. It was an accusation. She swallowed, her throat dry. How do you know my name? He didn't look at her when he answered. His gaze was fixed on the mouth of the cave, where the forest waited in shadow. Because the river told me, he said simply. Then his eyes cut back to hers. Because I've been watching you. The words landed like stones in her chest. She wanted to speak, to ask him what that meant, but his stare held her in place. There was no malice in it, yet it was too intense to bear. Like he was seeing pieces of her she hadn't even admitted to herself. She forced herself to move, pulling the damp blanket tighter around her shoulders. You're saying you've been following me? He tilted his head slightly, a trace of something unreadable in his expression. Not following. Waiting. The way he said it, soft, patient, final, made her skin prickle. He rose from his seat, the movement effortless, graceful in a way that wasn't human. The firelight traced the outline of his body through the cloak, broad shoulders, the tension of strength held in check. As he turned, the bandage on his arm shifted, revealing a glimpse of skin underneath, scarred, but not like any scar she had ever seen. They shimmered faintly, silver against his tanned flesh, forming patterns like runes or markings of a lost language. Her voice was barely a whisper. You're him. His gaze sharpened. Him? The wolf, she said, her words trembling. In the river. You were dying. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. Then he smiled, not kindly, but like someone who had been caught between truth and disbelief too many times. Dying, perhaps. But not dead. He stepped closer. The air changed. She could smell him now, earth after rain, smoke, something faintly metallic like the edge of a blade. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. What are you? She asked. He stopped within arm's reach, his eyes locked on hers. What do you think I am? The fire popped, scattering embers between them. She flinched at the sound, but his expression didn't move. It was as though he had been carved from something older than stone, still, but dangerous. She searched his face for something human, something she could name. But all she found was familiarity, an echo of something inside her that whispered you already know. You shouldn't be alive, she said softly. He crouched beside the fire, his eyes never leaving hers. Neither should you. Her heart stumbled. He looked down at his bandaged arm, flexing his fingers as though testing them. When you touched me, you gave me something, he murmured. Something I've never felt before. Elara shook her head. I didn't give you anything. I was trying to help. His mouth twitched, half a smirk, half something darker. Help. That's what you call it. She bristled, feeling heat rise under her skin. You would have drowned. He met her glare with a calm that only made her angrier. Maybe I was meant to. Her hands tightened in the blanket. You're welcome, then. The faintest curve touched his lips. You have fire. Good. You'll need it. Her pulse jumped. You speak as if you know me. I do, he said simply. More than you know yourself. She opened her mouth to argue, but he continued, his tone quieter now, like he was talking to the flames instead of her. Your kind used to walk with ours, long before your people built walls and forgot the wild. You carry the mark of the silver line, the blood that burns but does not break. Her breath caught. No one had spoken of the silver line in years. Not since the elders had branded her cursed and sent her away. How do you know that name? She whispered. He lifted his gaze to her again, and this time, the light caught something behind his eyes, a glint of memory, of pain, of something deeply buried. Because it's written in you. The river recognized it. That's why it spared you. The river? She asked, disbelief creeping in. You think the river has no voice? He interrupted. It speaks to those who still listen. She stared at him, trying to decide if he was mad or if the madness was hers for believing even a word of this. I don't understand any of this, she said finally. You will, he murmured. The firelight flickered across his face, catching the faint shimmer of his scars again. She couldn't stop staring. They weren't random, they formed patterns, almost like constellations. Symbols of rank, maybe. Of power. And then it hit her. She had seen markings like that once, long ago, on an old tapestry her grandmother had hidden away, woven with threads of silver. A crest belonging to the ancient Alpha King. The ruler who had vanished centuries ago after the Great Hunt. Her voice was barely audible. You're one of them. His expression darkened. One of the Alphas. Something flickered in his gaze, grief, anger, she couldn't tell which. He said at last. Once. Her chest tightened. What happened to you? He didn't answer right away. He reached into the fire, his fingers brushing the edge of a burning stick, but the flame didn't harm him. It bent around his skin, as though recognizing its master. Betrayal, he said quietly. By blood. By those who called me brother. Elara's heartbeat slowed, the air heavy with unspoken things. Why tell me this? She asked. Because, he said, standing again, towering over her, you bound yourself to me now. Whether you meant to or not. She stared at him, disbelief fighting terror. Bound? He nodded. The moment your fire met my blood, the old magic recognized its mirror. The river witnessed it. You saved my life, Elara. But in doing so, you tied it to yours. Her stomach twisted. No. I didn't ask for that. Neither did I, he said. His tone wasn't cruel. It was tired, bone deep, centuries-old tired. The fire guttered, casting shadows that danced across the cave walls. For a moment, he looked like he didn't belong to this world at all, like something carved from myth and regret. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady the tremor in her voice. So what happens now? He looked toward the forest again, the faintest edge of a growl threading through his words. Now, they'll come for both of us. Her pulse quickened. Who? The same ones who hunted you tonight. The ones who fear what you are becoming. The weight of his words pressed against her chest. What am I becoming? He turned back to her, his eyes burning gold again. What you were always meant to be. The silence that followed felt alive. The fire crackled, the rain whispered outside, and between them, something unspoken thrummed. Connection. Recognition. Fear. Elara looked down at her hands. The faint light she had seen in the river was gone, but her skin still tingled with its memory. He took a step closer. She could feel the heat of him now, could sense the restrained power beneath his calm. He reached out, not to touch her, but to brush a single strand of wet hair from her face. The gesture was careful, reverent, almost curious. You shouldn't fear what saved you, he said softly. She met his gaze, her voice barely steady. And what about what it saved? His lips curved, not in humor, but in something darker, acceptance, maybe. That, he said, is the part neither of us understands yet. Outside, the wind shifted. A distant howl cut through the forest, long, mournful, and unmistakable. The sound made him go still. His jaw tightened, his shoulders squared, the air around him changing. They've found us, he said. Elara's stomach dropped. Who? He met her eyes, his voice turning to command. Stay close to the fire. Don't move until I tell you. And before she could ask another word, he was gone, disappearing into the darkness beyond the cave mouth, the last trace of him nothing but a whisper of wind and the scent of storm. The flames flickered violently, throwing wild shadows across the walls. Elara stared after him, her heart racing, her mind spiraling between fear and wonder. She didn't know who he was, or what he truly wanted. But somewhere deep inside, beneath all the confusion and the terror, something else stirred, something that whispered she hadn't just saved his life. She had changed it. And maybe, he had changed hers too. The night held its breath around them. The forest that once howled with storm now lay silent, cloaked in damp mist and distant owl cries. The fire between them had dimmed to glowing coals, casting slow-moving shadows across Elara's face. Sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, her past clawed at the edges of her mind like something feral waiting to break through. She turned slightly, her gaze flicking toward the man, no, the alpha, who sat across the fire. His head was bowed, yet she could feel his awareness, sharp and constant, like the edge of a blade drawn near her throat. The scent of rain still clung to his cloak, mixing with smoke and the faint copper of dried blood. Her thoughts twisted, heavy and unrelenting. Why had she saved him? The question burned through her. For years she had done everything to stay invisible, to keep her secret buried. Yet the moment she'd seen that wolf drowning, something inside her had shattered. Some ancient instinct had taken over. The fire popped. She flinched. In her mind, she saw it all again, the faces, the fear. The day the villagers called her cursed. The temple floor splitting beneath her palms, light surging like a living thing. Her brother's screams echoing through stone. She'd been only 16. The flames that poured from her hands had scorched everything holy, everything safe. That was the day her name became a warning. Elara of the Silver Line. The cursed child. The girl who burned through blessings. The elders didn't look at her when they carved the mark into her palm, just below her thumb, a spiral of silver ash mixed with salt. She remembered the sting, the smoke rising from her skin. She remembered her mother's tears and the words whispered through trembling lips, "Run, before they make you a weapon." She ran. Through Roman markets that smelled of iron and sweat, through slave auctions where criminals were sold like cattle. She'd seen the way the world treated the broken. She learned to hide her light and wear her shame like armor. Now she sat across from a man who saw too much. His voice broke through the silence, low, raw. "You haven't slept in years, have you?" Elara's fingers tightened around the hem of her cloak. "What makes you say that? You breathe like someone who's always listening for footsteps." She looked away, the words scraping something deep inside her. "Maybe I am." The alpha's eyes caught the firelight, and for a heartbeat, she swore she saw them flicker with gold again. He studied her, not the way men did when they sought power or beauty, but like someone reading an old language he thought lost. "You fear your own blood," he said softly. Her heart stilled. "You don't know anything about my blood." He leaned closer, his voice barely more than a whisper. "The river told me more than your name, Elara. It told me what you are." Her breath caught. The flame swayed between them. "I don't want to hear this," she murmured, but her tone betrayed her. She did want to know. She'd spent her whole life running from whispers she never understood. The alpha looked into the fire. Once, there was a prophecy, older than Rome, older than the Pax. It spoke of two forces born apart but bound by the same wound. One marked by fire, one by fang. Together, they could either heal or destroy the balance of the world. He looked up slowly, meeting her gaze. The flame and the fang united. Her lips parted, but no sound came. That phrase, those exact words, had been carved into the wooden edge of her cradle. Her mother had traced them every night before she slept, whispering, "One day you'll understand." She stared into the fire until the shapes blurred. "You're saying I'm part of that?" "I'm saying you always were." Her pulse quickened, and the forest around her seemed to tighten. No. You're wrong. The silver flame, whatever it is, it's a curse. It hurts people. He shook his head. Only when you fight it. She laughed bitterly. So I should just embrace the thing that burned my family alive? His eyes softened, but his tone stayed steady. Power doesn't choose how it's used. People do. For a long time, neither spoke. The wind moved through the trees like a sigh. The fire crackled. Elara's chest felt heavy, as if every breath carried a memory too sharp to hold. She stared at the mark on her palm, the spiral faintly glowing beneath soot and blood. She'd spent years hiding it under gloves, under guilt. But here, in the stillness, she felt it pulse. Like it was listening. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. You talk like someone who knows what it's like to lose control. The alpha's gaze drifted toward the river beyond the camp, his expression darkening. Control? He almost smiled, but there was no joy in it. Once, I thought I had it. I ruled my pack, protected my people. But power breeds hunger, even among wolves. His jaw tightened, a muscle ticking near his temple. My brother wanted the throne. Said my bond to the old ways made me weak. He turned the pack against me. The last thing I saw before they struck me down was his hand, holding the same seal that marked my father's death. He looked back at her, and for the first time, she saw something raw beneath his strength. A fracture that mirrored her own. I was meant to die in that river, he said quietly. But you pulled me out. Elara's breath faltered. I didn't know who you were. Maybe that's why you did it, he said, voice low. The fire crackled between them again, as though feeding off their silence. For the first time since her exile, she felt seen, not by a priest or a soldier or a hunter, but by someone who carried the same ruin inside. Two broken lines intersecting in the dark. She turned away, her throat tight. You said you've been watching me. Why? He hesitated, then said, because the prophecy spoke of your light. I didn't believe it at first. Until the night I felt it. She frowned. Felt it? He lifted his hand, showing the faint shimmer of the scars across his arm. When you touched me in the river, your flame met my blood. It called to me. The bond was sealed. The words struck her like thunder. Bond? Between fire and Fong. Between you and me. Her heart pounded. That's not possible. You're saying I'm bound to you? He didn't answer right away. The silence said enough. Elara's chest ached with confusion, fear, and something she didn't want to name. I don't even know you, she whispered. You will, he said, his voice a mix of promise and warning. Whether you want to or not. The air thickened, heavy with things unspoken. She could hear his heartbeat through the crackling quiet, steady, strong, anchoring. But inside her, everything was unraveling. Elara looked up at the night sky through the canopy, where the moon hung pale and swollen. She wondered if her mother could see her now. The outcast girl sitting beside a fallen alpha, carrying a destiny she never asked for. Her voice broke softly. I just wanted peace. He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much war. Peace isn't given, Elara. It's taken back. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying and true. Maybe he wasn't her enemy at all. Maybe he was the only one who understood what it meant to be cursed by your own strength. As the fire dwindled to embers, Elara closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to remember who she was before the world called her dangerous. The girl who once believed light could save instead of destroy. And somewhere beyond the trees, the wind carried an old whisper, the one the elders feared. The flame has found its Fong. The forest thinned with every step, giving way to a vast clearing drenched in mist and moonlight. The path ahead was uneven, carved long ago by hands that no longer existed. Elara walked beside the alpha in silence, her cloak heavy with dew, her breath clouding in the cold air. Each footfall echoed with ghosts, soft whispers from centuries past, carried on the wind. They had traveled since dawn, through gnarled woods and riverbeds that smelled of rust and rain. Now, at the edge of the world, the ruins emerged from the earth like bones. Great marble arches reached toward the sky, fractured and overgrown, their white stone streaked with ivy and time. Broken columns lay half-buried in moss, remnants of the ancient Roman market where criminals had once been sold beneath the watchful eyes of gods carved in stone. Elara's heart pounded as they stepped through the threshold. The place felt alive, not with breath, but with memory. The air itself trembled, as if remembering every scream, every bargain, every soul traded in the name of power. The Alpha's voice cut through the stillness. "This was once called the Hall of Fate," he murmured, running his fingers across the cracked marble of a fallen pillar. Here, wolves and men were chained together. Rome believed they could bind what they feared. Elara looked around, her eyes tracing faint carvings half lost to time, wolves, fire, and crowns. "And now?" she asked softly. "Now," he said, "it's where the old gods come to listen." He led her to the heart of the ruins, where a stone altar rose crookedly from the ground. Its surface shimmered faintly under the moon, etched with symbols she had seen only in dreams. When he placed his palm upon it, the carvings came alive, pale lines pulsing with silver light, spreading like veins across the stone. Elara took a hesitant step closer. "What is this place?" "The beginning," he said. "And the end." His hand brushed across one of the symbols, a spiral almost identical to the mark on her palm. The moment her eyes met it, something inside her stirred. Heat bloomed beneath her skin, crawling from her chest to her fingertips. She reached out before she could stop herself. The instant her fingers touched the altar, the world fractured. Flashes of light. Thunder in her ears. She saw wolves kneeling in a circle of flame. Chains snapping. A crown forged of light and ash forming above a woman's head. The same mark that burned in her palm shimmered across her chest, radiant and alive. She saw the Alpha kneeling before her, his eyes not gold, but molten, ancient, infinite. Then, darkness. Elara gasped and stumbled back, clutching her chest. The fire in her veins dimmed, leaving behind a dull ache that pulsed with every heartbeat. The Alpha caught her before she fell, his arm firm around her waist. "What did you see?" Her voice quivered. "Wolves, fire, me." She swallowed hard. "There was a crown." He studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Then it's true." Elara shook her head. "No. I don't want this. I didn't ask for it." He didn't release her. "You think destiny asks?" Her voice broke. "I just wanted to survive." "You weren't born to survive," he said quietly. "You were born to change everything." His words sank into her like a blade, twisting through every wound she thought had healed. She stepped away, trembling, her back brushing the cold stone. "I don't believe in fate." He smiled faintly, though sorrow clouded his eyes. "Then why does the earth move when you speak its name?" Before she could answer, a faint sound broke through the night, the creak of a staff dragging against stone. From the shadows of the ruined archway, a figure emerged. Cloaked in black, bent with age, her eyes milky white like moonlight on water. Elara froze. The Alpha lowered his head slightly. "Seer." The old woman's voice was thin, but it carried across the ruins like a song remembered. "So the river's whisper was true," she said. "The silver flame returns, and with her, the fong she cannot deny." Elara's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" The seer turned her head toward her, though her gaze seemed to pierce through more than flesh. "I am what remains of memory," she said. "And I've waited lifetimes to see your light awaken." "I don't have light," Elara said quickly, stepping back. "I have fire. And it destroys everything it touches." The seer smiled faintly. "Then you have never learned to let it burn for you." The Alpha's gaze darkened. "Tell her what she needs to know." The old woman's staff tapped against the altar. The stone pulsed once, sending a ripple through the air. "Long before Rome raised its walls," she began, "the first wolves were not born of blood, but of flame. They were guardians of balance, bound to the elements they served. But one betrayed the circle, seeking dominion instead of harmony. The gods divided the gift, giving the flame to man and the fang to wolf. Only when the two meet again will the curse of division end. Elara's chest tightened. You're saying, that's me? The seer's clouded eyes turned toward her. You carry the flame that was once divine. He carries the fang that fell from grace. Together, you are the last chance the old gods left this world. Elara shook her head, trembling. No. I'm not their savior. I'm their mistake. The seer's voice softened. Child, even the gods make mistakes to find their truth. Silence followed, heavy and alive. Elara turned away, gripping her arms tightly. The night pressed close, thick with meaning she didn't want. The prophecy, the visions, the mark, it was too much. All she'd ever wanted was to forget, to live quietly in the shadows. Now the shadows were calling her by name. The Alpha approached slowly. You felt it, didn't you? Her voice cracked. I felt everything. And it's tearing me apart. He stopped just before her, the distance between them charged like a storm. Then let it tear, he said softly. Because what's left will be the truth of who you are. Her breath hitched. You don't understand. I do, he interrupted, his tone raw. You think I wanted this? To be marked by prophecy? To carry the blood of every life I've failed to protect? His hand brushed against the scars on his arm, the faint silver lines glowing in response to hers. But destiny doesn't choose the willing, Elara. It chooses the one strong enough to hate it and still follow. The words struck her deeper than she expected. Something in her chest cracked open, not acceptance, not yet, but the faintest spark of understanding. The seer's voice wove through the silence again. The flame and the fang are bound now. But the bond must be sealed before the next blood moon, or both will perish. The balance demands unity. Elara's throat went dry. Sealed? How? The old woman's lips curled into something between a smile and a warning. Through choice. Choice? Sacrifice. The word echoed like thunder. The Alpha's eyes darkened. Enough. But the seer was already retreating, her form fading into mist. The path is written, she said. But only together can you read it. And then she was gone, leaving behind only the echo of her words and the shimmer of the altar fading into stillness. The night grew colder. The ruins seemed to exhale, as if the earth itself had been holding its breath. Elara stood trembling, her mind a storm of disbelief and dread. She wanted to run again, to bury her power and the curse that came with it. Yet when she looked at him, the man who had once been a wolf drowning in the river, something inside her refused to move. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Do you feel it? She nodded slowly. Like a thread pulling through my chest. That's the bond, he said. It's not fate binding us, Elara. It's the truth waking up. The moon rose higher, painting them both in silver light. Around them, the ruins shimmered faintly, as though the stones themselves recognized what stood between them, two remnants of forgotten bloodlines, caught between destruction and salvation. Elara's voice trembled when she spoke again. If destiny is real, what if I ruin everything? He met her gaze steadily. Then we ruin it together. And for the first time since the flames consumed her past, Elara didn't feel like running. She stood there beneath the ancient sky, her pulse tangled with his, her fear burning into something else, something wild, alive, and terrifyingly divine. The wind rose, swirling dust and ash through the ruins. The altar's final glow faded, but the mark on her palm burned brighter than ever. The prophecy had awakened. And so had she. The mountains rise like bones beneath a bruised sky. The air is sharp, cold, and raw with silence, save for the sound of Elara's breath breaking in fragments. Her cloak is torn, her palms scorched from her own power. The scent of ash clings to her like a curse she cannot outrun. Every step up the jagged path drives splinters of grief deeper into her chest. Behind her, the ruins burn. Behind her, the only person who had looked at her without fear now stands with the same silence that once condemned her. She stops beneath a dying pine. Her hands tremble. The silver fire still flickers faintly across her fingertips, stubborn, alive. She clenches them into fists until blood beads across her palms. The pain feels like penance. She whispers to the cold, "I didn't ask for this." Wind cuts through her hair like a blade, carrying distant echoes of the Alpha's voice, the way he had said her name before the world shattered again. Elara shuts her eyes, but the memory of his gaze lingers. The confusion in it. The hesitation that broke her. Hours pass. Or perhaps it's days. The forest shifts from gray dawn to pale afternoon. Her fire dwindles to embers, leaving her hollow. Hunger gnaws at her. The cold bites. Yet, deeper than all of it, there's something else growing, a restlessness beneath her ribs, the pulse of the flame that refuses to die. It hums against her skin like a heart that is not her own. She stumbles into a clearing where snow melts in strange patterns, circles and spirals that shimmer faintly under the light. She realizes it's the mark of her magic, leaking even when she tries to suppress it. She falls to her knees, pressing her forehead against the frozen earth. The flame hums louder, impatient, like it knows something she refuses to understand. Behind her, the forest breathes. A distant howl ripples through the trees, long, mournful, carrying her name. She stiffens. The Alpha. He's still searching for her. But then another sound, a sharper, crueler cry, splits the air. Not his. A rival call. The scent of iron fills the wind. The soldiers from the rival pack have not stopped hunting her. The world itself has turned predator. She scrambles to her feet and runs. Branches whip her arms. Blood warms her skin in streaks. Her lungs burn. Somewhere behind her, she hears boots crunching through frost, the low growl of wolves, and the metallic scent of silver blades. Her flame surges in panic, flickering between her fingers, begging release. But she remembers their faces, those soldiers who had screamed as fire swallowed them whole. The horror in their eyes. The betrayal in his. She presses her palms to her chest, forcing the power back down until it sears her from within. The forest narrows into a ravine where a stream glows faintly with moonlight. She wades through the icy water, gasping, trying to lose her scent. Her reflection flickers beside her. A stranger with eyes too bright, too wild. And then she hears him. The Alpha steps from the shadows at the other side of the ravine, his armor cracked, his face streaked with soot and regret. The sight of him fractures her composure. "Don't," she says, voice breaking. "Don't come closer." He doesn't move. The air between them tightens, heavy with everything unsaid. "I tried to stop them," he says, his tone rough, barely human. "They didn't listen. They see fire and think it's evil. But I saw more than that." Her laugh is hollow. "You saw what they see now. A monster." His jaw tightens. "No. I saw power. The kind that could end all of this." She steps back, shaking her head. "I never wanted to end anything. I wanted peace. Peace isn't given to people like us," he says quietly. "We take it. We fight for it. Together." The word together makes her chest ache. It's a promise she can't believe anymore. "You hesitated," she whispers. "When they called me cursed. You hesitated. That's all it took." His eyes flash with guilt. "You don't understand what it means to lead a pack." "I understand perfectly," she cuts in. "It means sacrifice. And I was the easiest one to throw away." The silence that follows is sharper than any blade. A distant explosion breaks it. The rival pack has set fire to the forest's edge. Smoke curls into the sky. The Alpha's men are still fighting, dying for a war fueled by fear. He looks toward the chaos, then back at her. "Elara," he says, his voice low, raw. If you run, they'll find you. If you stay, they'll kill you. But if you trust me, just once more. She lifts her hand, and flame bursts to life between them, casting light on both their faces. I trusted you once. It nearly destroyed me. He doesn't flinch. Then let it destroy me instead. Something cracks inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the wall she built begins to crumble. The rival pack appears from the smoke, wolves with eyes like frost, blades glinting in their hands. The alpha draws his sword, his stance wide, protective. Elara's flame burns brighter, answering the threat with ancient fury. The clash is brutal. Steel meets fire. Snarls echo. The alpha moves like a storm, every strike guided by instinct and desperation. Elara's power flares beside him, the silver flame weaving through the chaos, shielding him even as she fights to control it. One soldier lunges at her with a silver spear. She turns, deflecting it, but it grazes her side. Pain explodes through her. Her power lashes out uncontrolled, engulfing the attacker in light. The scream that follows is human and terrible. When the smoke clears, bodies lie scattered. The alpha kneels beside her, his hand trembling as he reaches for her wound. Don't touch me, she whispers. But he does anyway. His hand presses against the burn, his power seeping through, warm, grounding. The fire inside her quiets, just for a moment. You're bleeding, he says. So are you, she replies, and he almost smiles. They sit there in the aftermath, the ruins of battle surrounding them, the scent of smoke and blood heavy in the air. He breaks the silence. The prophecy, the seer said the flame and the fang would unite. Maybe this is what she meant. The end of the world we knew. She stares at him, exhaustion and defiance in her gaze. Or the beginning of something worse. His eyes soften. Then we'll face it. Together. She looks away. You don't even know who I am. I know enough, he says. You burned through fear and found mercy in the ashes. That's who you are. Her heart stutters. For the first time, his words don't sound like chains, they sound like truth. But before she can answer, another arrow slices through the air, striking the ground between them. They both turn. Shadows move at the edge of the forest, more soldiers, endless enemies. The world isn't done fighting them. Elara stands, fire rippling across her arms like molten glass. Then let the world come. The alpha rises beside her, his wolf eyes gleaming. It already has. The mountain wind roars, carrying the scent of blood and destiny. Together, they face the dark horizon, the cursed witch and the fallen alpha, the flame and the fang, bound not by prophecy, but by something far more dangerous, choice. And as dawn breaks crimson over the peaks, the world burns with it. The cave breathes with the sound of melting ice, droplets echoing through the dark like the slow rhythm of a tired heart. Elara sits near the small fire she's built from damp wood and broken branches. Smoke curls low, reluctant to rise, its scent clinging to her hair and cloak. Her wound burns, a dull throb that pulses in time with the memory of the alpha's voice. The mountains outside are silent, save for the far-off cry of something wild and hungry. She hasn't slept in days. Each time she closes her eyes, she sees the flames, her flames, swallowing men alive. Their screams haunt her. Her hands shake when she tries to clean the cut across her ribs. The power beneath her skin flickers, restless, like a trapped animal begging to be let out. She whispers a prayer to no god in particular, a broken plea for silence inside her soul. Then, from the shadows at the cave's mouth, she hears it, footsteps dragging, slow, uneven. A scent follows, a mixture of iron, smoke, and the faint wild musk that once meant safety. She doesn't move. Her hand finds the knife beside her, though she already knows it's him. The alpha steps into the firelight, his figure half swallowed by the glow. Blood stains his shoulder. His jaw is set in exhaustion, his breath unsteady. He looks at her like a man returning to a place he was never sure still existed. She says nothing. Neither does he. He crosses the cave and drops to his knees beside the fire, close enough for her to feel the heat of him, but not close enough to touch. His eyes flicker toward her wound, then to her face. "You shouldn't be here," she says quietly. He huffs a tired laugh. "You said that the last time I found you. That time, you didn't have arrows sticking out of you." He doesn't answer. He simply reaches for the knife at his belt, snaps the head off a broken arrow lodged in his arm, and pulls it free with a hiss. Blood runs down his forearm, pooling in his palm. The smell of it mingles with the smoke, sharp, raw. He presses his hand to the wound, but his strength falters. Something inside her cracks. Against her will, she moves toward him, kneels, and catches his wrist before he can collapse. "You'll bleed out," she mutters. He looks at her then, truly looks, through her anger, her fear, into the part of her that still trembles from what happened in the ruins. "Then stop me," he says softly. She hates the way her pulse stumbles at those words. Hates the way his voice always finds the weak places in her resolve. She tears a strip from her cloak and wraps it around his arm, pressing until the bleeding slows. His skin is hot beneath her fingers, his pulse steady but shallow. When she's done, she sits back, but he doesn't move away. The fire crackles between them. Silence hums. "I thought you'd gone back," she says finally. He shakes his head. "There's nothing to go back to. My pack, they made their choice." "What did they do?" He doesn't look at her as he speaks. "They called me traitor. Said I'd brought a witch among them. Said I'd cursed our bloodline." His voice catches. "They chained me before the moon and cut me with silver until I bled out every oath I ever swore to them." Elara's breath leaves her. The words settle in the cold air like stones. She can almost see it, the fire-lit circle, the eyes of wolves turning on one of their own. The sound of chains, the glint of silver. The man before her carrying scars not of war, but of loyalty misplaced. "They said I'd fallen under your spell," he continues. "But they were wrong. I didn't fall under it. I walked into it. Willingly." She stares at the fire, trying to ignore the ache rising in her throat. "You talk like this was fate. Like some prophecy bound us." He turns toward her, eyes dark and tired. "Prophecy didn't drag me back from death. You did." Her laugh is brittle. "You think because I healed you that night, that means something?" "Yes," he says simply. "It means you saved what was left of me." The words hang between them, heavy, dangerous. Elara rises, pacing near the cave wall. "You don't understand. Every time I use this power, something inside me breaks. It takes from me, pieces I'll never get back. You don't want that on your hands." He watches her, his expression unreadable. "And yet you still did it." "Because you were dying," she snaps. "Because I couldn't watch another life burn because of me." "Then stop pretending you don't care," he says, voice low, sharp. She freezes. The air between them shifts. The sound of dripping water becomes the only thing moving. He stands, closing the space between them until she can feel the warmth of him again. His voice softens. "You keep running from what's already yours. Trust isn't something you earn once. It's something you choose every time you could run, and don't." Her heartbeat stutters, her chest rising and falling too fast. "And if I choose wrong," she whispers. "Then I'll burn with you," he says. "But at least we'll stop pretending we were ever meant to survive this world alone." She looks up at him. The firelight dances across his face, illuminating the scars that mark his jaw, the faint tremor in his hands. There's no command in his tone now, no alpha authority, only a man asking for permission to stay. He reaches for her hand but stops short, his fingers hovering inches from hers. The restraint in that small space between them feels more dangerous than touch itself. She can feel the heat radiating from his skin, the pull of something ancient and magnetic threading through her chest. The silence stretches, taut as a bowstring. She feels her defenses crumble, piece by fragile piece. Her voice trembles. I want to trust you. He meets her gaze, steady, unflinching. Then do. It isn't a command. It's an invitation. Her hand moves before her mind can stop it. Their fingers touch, barely, but the world shifts. The flame between them flares higher, wind curling through the cave as though something unseen has awakened. For a moment, neither speaks. His thumb brushes against her knuckles, slow, reverent. She feels his pulse racing beneath his skin, the echo of her own heart answering it. The power that has always frightened her hums quietly now, not as a weapon, but as warmth. For the first time, the fire does not hurt. It breathes. It lives. It listens. He leans closer, his voice a whisper against the storm that begins to rise outside. If the world burns for what we are, let it. I've lived enough years in the dark. Her breath catches. His forehead rests against hers. No kiss, no claim, just the stillness of two broken beings daring to stop running. The wind howls through the mountains, shaking the cave. But within, there is only firelight, and the sound of two hearts learning the same rhythm. When she finally speaks, her voice is barely a whisper. Then don't leave. He smiles faintly. Not unless you tell me to. She closes her eyes, feeling the weight of everything, the prophecy, the exile, the blood on her hands, and for the first time, it doesn't crush her. It steadies her. Then stay, she says. The storm outside breaks. The river below thunders with meltwater, the earth trembling as if the world itself has heard her choice. And as dawn begins to creep across the horizon, the fire between them burns steady, neither wild nor cruel, but alive. Two souls once cursed now find in each other not salvation, but understanding. And in that understanding, something stronger than fate begins to grow. The night is heavy with frost when the Alpha returns to the mountain citadel. His cloak is soaked with the scent of rain and blood, his jaw locked in grim silence. The stone path leading to the council hall glimmers faintly under the moon, every step echoing like judgment. Wolves in their human form watch from the shadows, heads bowed, eyes wary. Word travels faster than wind, he has brought the flame witch among them. The torches lining the entrance flare to life as he steps through the arched doorway. The hall is vast and cold, carved from black stone, its walls etched with the marks of generations. The council sits in a semicircle, elders cloaked in fur and silver, their eyes gleaming like sharpened knives. The scent of old blood and incense fills the air. He stands before them, shoulders squared, voice calm but edged with defiance. I brought her here because she saved my life. She is not our enemy. The eldest among them, a man called Torin, whose scars tell stories older than the Alpha himself, leans forward. His eyes gleam beneath heavy brows. You say she saved you, yet you bring a curse into our midst? You know what the mark means. She carries no curse, the Alpha replies. What she holds is power we do not understand. A murmur ripples through the chamber. Some eyes burn with curiosity, others with fear. Torin's hand slams the table. Do not play the fool. The river has already whispered her name, the silver flame. The same name the old gods feared. You bring ruin on us all. The Alpha's control slips, his voice deepening, a growl beneath every word. I bring truth. And truth isn't ruin unless you're afraid of it. Then, the ancient priest steps forward from the shadows, a figure draped in black robes, his face half hidden by the hood. His presence stills the room. The smell of sage and death clings to him. In his hands, he holds a small relic, an iron disc inscribed with runes, pulsing faintly with light. Enough, the priest rasps, voice like dry earth cracking. Let the truth speak. He turns the disc, and symbols rise, burning gold against the darkness. Images swirl, visions of Rome's ancient temples, of wolves kneeling before a silver flame, of chained gods bowing under mortal command. The priest's gaze lifts to the Alpha. The girl you defend, he says, is born of their blood. Her lineage runs straight to the Roman wolf gods, the ones who enslaved our kind. She carries the mark of the destroyer. Gasps tear through the hall. Some rise to their feet, snarling. Others whisper prayers under their breath. The alpha's fists clench at his sides. "You lie," he says, but his voice wavers. The priest holds up a scroll, yellowed with age. It is written here, "When the silver flame rises once more, the chains of the old gods shall be broken, and the blood of wolves shall bow again." You cannot deny the mark. It burns on her skin. And he's right. The mark, he's seen it himself, faintly glowing beneath her collarbone when the fire took her. He thought it was a wound, a remnant of power. But now, doubt crawls into the corners of his mind. Torrent's voice fills the silence. "You've doomed us, Alpha. You've brought the blood of Rome into our sacred halls." When he does not respond, the elders press harder. "Will you protect her now, even knowing she was born of those who chained your ancestors? Will you let her burn the last of our freedom?" His silence becomes a wound in the air. Every heartbeat that passes feels like betrayal. And then, the heavy doors of the hall creak open. Elara stands in the doorway, her hair loose, her eyes glowing faintly in the torchlight. Her cloak hangs in tatters, the scent of ash clinging to her. She's heard everything. Every word. Every accusation. Every silence. The room goes still. The Alpha turns, his breath catching. For a moment, something human flickers in his face, fear, sorrow, guilt. But he doesn't speak. That silence cuts deeper than any sword. Her voice trembles, breaking like glass. "You knew." He steps forward, his mouth opening, but no words come. "You knew," she repeats, louder now, her power beginning to stir beneath her skin. "You heard them. You let them call me monster." The air shifts. The firelight bends around her. Her veins glow with silver light as the power she's fought to suppress begins to rise, wild and merciless. The torches flicker out, replaced by a shimmering radiance that burns from within her. "Tell them it's a lie," she whispers, voice raw. But still, he says nothing. The silence breaks her. The floor cracks beneath her feet as the power erupts, silver flames spiraling around her like living serpents. Wind roars through the hall, tearing banners from the walls. The stone trembles, groans. The elders fall to their knees. "She's the cursed one," someone screams. The destroyer has awakened. Marble fractures, splitting open as the fire consumes the room. The priest's relic melts in his hand, dripping molten iron onto the floor. The Alpha moves toward her, shouting her name, but she's beyond hearing now. Her heart is breaking, her rage swallowing her reason. Every face she's ever trusted now looks back in fear. "Is this what you wanted?" she cries, tears cutting through the ash on her cheeks. "You wanted to see what I really am?" The fire answers for her. Pillars crumble. Wolves bow their heads to the ground as the light blinds them. The ceiling splits, and moonlight floods the hall, mingling with the fire in a violent storm of silver and flame. The Alpha reaches her at last, his hands burning as he grabs her arms. "Elara, stop. You'll destroy everything." Her eyes meet his, no longer soft, no longer human. "You already did." The fire surges outward, throwing him back. The last thing he sees before the world turns white is her silhouette standing amid the ruin, hair lifted by the wind, flames dancing around her like wings. And then, she's gone. The storm breaks. The hall lies in ruins. Wolves crawl from the rubble, wounded, terrified. The priest lies dead, his relic nothing but molten slag. The Alpha kneels amid the wreckage, his hands blackened with soot, his heart hollow. Her scent lingers in the air, smoke and salt, grief and fire. He whispers her name once more, but the echo returns empty. Far beyond the mountains, deep within the wilderness, Elara stumbles through the trees, her power still pulsing wildly beneath her skin. Every step leaves scorched earth behind her. The sky above churns, lightning bleeding through clouds. Her breath comes in ragged bursts. The wind carries voices, memories of fear, of his silence, of the look in his eyes when he didn't defend her. She reaches a cliff and falls to her knees. The fire in her hands flares once more, then fades, leaving her shaking, broken. She looks at her palms, the same hands that once healed, now stained with destruction. Her voice is barely a whisper. "I'll never burn for anyone again." The words drift into the storm, carried far and wide. Below, the forest ignites in a slow, mournful glow, and from the shadows, eyes watch her, some afraid, some curious, all waiting. Because in the ashes of betrayal, something ancient has awakened. And the world will never be the same again. The storm had not ended, it had merely changed its shape. What once raged through the sky now burned in her veins. The ground beneath Elara's feet pulsed with heat, each heartbeat of the earth echoing her own. Shadows moved like restless spirits around the ruined temple, whispering in a language older than the packs themselves. The rival wolves gathered in a crescent, their eyes gleaming under the blood-red moon. Their alpha stood before the altar of bones, arms raised to summon the one they worshipped. The Shadow Alpha, god of domination and eternal submission. The ritual began with a hum that crawled through the air, low and sinister. Wolves chanted in tongues meant to bind, not to bless. Fire circled the altar, black and alive. From it rose a shape, vast and coiling, neither man nor beast but something cruelly divine. Its eyes opened, two suns made of void, and the wind recoiled in terror. Then, through the crimson mist, she came. Elara stepped from the smoke, her silver fire trailing like a second dawn. Every step cracked the earth, every breath turned frost to steam. Her presence silenced even the god forming before them. Wolves who had snarled now backed away, their instincts bending before something greater than fear. She wore no crown, yet divinity coiled around her like armor. "You summoned a god to chain me," her voice carried, soft yet resonant, "but you forgot. Gods only answer those who understand power." The rival Alpha bared his teeth. "You are corruption. You are the reason the moon bleeds." Elara's eyes glowed, not with fury, but clarity. "No. I am the reason it rises again." The Shadow Alpha reached toward her, its form a swirl of smoke and malice. Her fire met its darkness in a clash that shook mountains. Silver light devoured the void, every spark that touched it screamed. Yet she did not fight to destroy, it was something more deliberate, more ancient. She turned her palm upward, and from her heart's core emerged a current of light threaded with memory. Faces, bloodlines, prayers of wolves long forgotten. "You call me destroyer," she said, "but I am the keeper of what you buried." The god roared. Its tendrils lashed toward her, seeking to wrap, to crush, to consume. But she raised her hands, and the river spirit answered her call. From the shattered ground burst a torrent of water, glowing with runes older than the moon. The fire and water entwined, creating chains of pure energy that lashed around the god's form, binding it to the earth that birthed it. The ancient creature screamed once, a sound that carried every sin of the packs, and then it was gone. When silence fell, the air shimmered. Wolves watched her, trembling, their eyes reflecting both awe and surrender. She turned to them, voice low and steady. "You feared my fire because you only saw what it destroyed. You never waited to see what it could heal." Her gaze swept across them, the betrayers, the fearful, the lost. Around her, the flames dimmed into silver embers, drifting like falling stars. Wherever they landed, grass grew. Broken stones knit back together. The temple began to hum again, not with violence, but with life. At the edge of the crowd, the Alpha King stood. Blood still marked his shoulder where battle had found him, yet his eyes were fixed only on her. He had seen her power before, but not like this. This was not the woman he had tried to protect, this was the storm itself given form. He stepped forward, cautious, reverent. "You've become what the old world feared," he said softly. "And what the new world needs." Her eyes flicked to him, steady, unreadable. "Then tell me," she murmured, "are you ready to stand beside what you once tried to cage?" He took another step, the weight of his pack, his counsel, his bloodline pressing behind his every breath. "I was never trying to cage you. I was trying to understand you before you burned yourself alive." She moved closer, the air between them thick with memory, the cave, the firelight, the night he knelt and said she was never meant to stand alone. The distance between them shrank to nothing. He reached for her hand, but this time, he did not stop. The moment their skin met, energy surged, not violent, but unyielding. The bond that had once flickered uncertainly now burned steady and whole. Around them, the wolves lowered their heads. The rival alpha fell to his knees, bound in chains of molten light that pulsed with her power. Elara raised her hand again, not in wrath, but judgment. You sought to awaken domination, she said, but all you've done is remind the world that submission has no throne. Lightning split the clouds above. The blood-red moon paled back to silver. The wind changed direction, carrying her scent, the scent of renewal, of something that would not be erased. She turned to the packs. The fire is not yours to fear anymore, she said. It belongs to every heart that remembers what it means to fight without hate. No one spoke. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the Alpha King, his voice quiet but unwavering, dropped to one knee. My queen. The title echoed through the ruins. It was not ritual, it was recognition. Wolves followed suit, one by one, until every knee touched the ground. Elara stood in the center, no longer the hunted, no longer the outcast. She was the beginning and the end of their lineage, the bridge between man, wolf, and God. Yet even as power hummed around her, her eyes softened when they met his. She stepped closer, resting her hand against his face. Do not kneel, she whispered. You fought to keep me alive. Stand with me instead. He rose, and when he did, something unseen sealed itself between them. Not just love, not just bond, but equilibrium. The twin halves of one wild, enduring force. The sky opened above them, rain falling in warm sheets that hissed against the cooling stone. Her fire dimmed to soft light, flickering like breath on the air. Around them, wolves lifted their voices. Not in fear, not in battle, but in harmony. The song rose over the mountains, carrying her name to the stars. Elara closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she did not feel hunted. She did not feel cursed. She felt whole. But deep within the earth, under the ashes of the god she had bound, something stirred. The old world did not die easily. Shadows slithered, whispering promises of return. She felt it, a pulse, faint but real. Her eyes opened, meeting his once more. He understood without words. The peace they had forged was not the end. It was only the breath before the next storm. Still, she smiled, a small, knowing thing. Let them come, she said. We are no longer their sacrifice. And when the dawn finally broke, it found them standing side by side amidst a reborn world, her silver fire and his golden fury woven into one eternal light. The dawn broke like a wound healing too fast, fragile, trembling, and far too quiet for what had just died. The temple lay in ruin, smoke curling upward in soft ribbons that carried the scent of ash, rain, and blood. The world was still, as if holding its breath in reverence or in fear. The fire had gone, yet its echo shimmered faintly in the air, a silver haze drifting over the shattered stones. Elara stood at the center of it all, the hem of her cloak torn, her skin marked with faint burns that pulsed like living light. She no longer trembled. Her body was exhausted, yes, but her spirit burned with something infinite. The kind of quiet power that makes gods look twice before speaking. Her eyes scanned the horizon where the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the mountains gold. It should have felt like victory. It didn't. It felt like morning. Behind her, footsteps approached, soft, careful, respectful. The Alpha. His presence had weight, even when he tried to move lightly. He stopped several paces away, watching her. The silence stretched between them like the final thread of a bond that had endured fire and betrayal. What will you do now? His voice broke the stillness, low and uncertain, stripped of the authority it once carried. Elara didn't turn. Her gaze remained fixed on the horizon where the light met the ruins. Her fingers brushed the air where flames had once answered her call. I'll rebuild what they destroyed, she said quietly, the words steady as stone. With or without your crown. He flinched, just slightly. It wasn't anger that struck him, it was understanding. She wasn't rejecting him, she was freeing herself from the structure that had once defined her limits. He took a few steps closer, the smell of iron and wolf clinging to him. You don't have to do it alone. A pause. She exhaled, the breath visible in the cool morning air. Don't I? He wanted to reach for her again. He wanted to take her hand, to promise her something beyond the ruins, but every word that rose in his throat felt small compared to the silence she carried. She had faced gods. She had faced her own power. What could a promise mean now, when eternity had already touched her skin? Elara turned finally, her eyes meeting his. There was no fury there, no coldness, just a calm so deep it was nearly painful to look at. You taught me to survive, she said. Now I have to teach the world to live. The words fell between them like a prophecy. The wind rose, tugging at her hair, lifting strands of silver light that caught the sun and scattered it like shards of glass. She looked almost untouchable, a figure carved by both tragedy and triumph. The Alpha looked at her and saw not just the woman he loved, but the force that would shape what came next. He stepped closer still, until they were only a breath apart. And if the world refuses? Elara's lips curved, not quite a smile. Then it burns. A flicker of something dangerous passed between them, recognition, desire, maybe both. The fire that had nearly destroyed them still lingered, transformed into a pulse that neither could extinguish. For a heartbeat, it felt as though the whole world leaned toward them, waiting for one of them to move. But she didn't. She turned away, her eyes tracing the ruins that stretched out like bones of an ancient beast. The river's spirit still breathes here, she murmured. The land isn't dead. It's waiting. He followed her gaze. All around them, faint sprouts pushed through the cracks in the stone, green, fragile, alive. The first signs of rebirth. Elara knelt, pressing her palm to the earth. Light rippled from her touch, soft and warm, and where it passed, the ground shuddered. Broken pillars straightened. Shattered carvings reformed, not as they were, but as something new, symbols of both flame and moon intertwined. The legacy of two bloodlines, bound not by prophecy, but by choice. The Alpha watched, his throat tight. They'll call you goddess, he whispered. She shook her head. Let them call me what they need to. Titles don't build worlds. People do. Her hand lingered on the stone, and for a moment, he saw the faint tremor in her fingers, the exhaustion she refused to show. She had given everything. She was still giving. He took a step forward, instinct overriding reason. Elara. His voice softened. You've carried this war on your back long enough. She looked at him, and in her eyes was the weight of every life lost, every betrayal endured, every truth unveiled. And now I'll carry peace, she said. Even if I have to drag it through fire. He couldn't argue. There was nothing left to say. The wind shifted, bringing with it the distant cry of wolves, a new song, low and mournful. The packs were calling, waiting for what came next. Elara stood, the light fading from her hands. She turned toward the sound, her posture unyielding, her silhouette crowned in sunlight. For a moment, she hesitated. Just one. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. Go back to your people, she said. Tell them the fire has chosen not to consume them. His chest ached. And you? I'll walk where the fire leads, she replied. The words hit him harder than any blow. He wanted to ask her to stay, to let him share whatever future she was chasing, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She didn't need saving. She didn't need guarding. She had become the storm and the calm that followed it. She began to walk, her figure cutting through the smoke and light. Each step left behind faint traces of silver flame that dissolved into the earth. The Alpha stood in silence, watching until she vanished into the mist. When the last trace of her light disappeared, the wind carried her final words back to him, faint but clear. Would you have feared her, or followed her into the fire? The question lingered, not just in the air, but in his bones. He didn't answer aloud. He didn't need to. The way his heart ached told him everything. The ruin settled around him, the dawn stretching wider, burning away the remnants of darkness. He turned toward the mountains where she had gone, and for the first time, he smiled, a small, broken, hopeful thing. He would follow, not because she asked, but because something in him knew there was no other path worth taking. The fire had changed her. It had changed them both. And as the light spread across the world, the old gods slept uneasy in their graves. Because the true Alpha, the one born of love, not lineage, had already begun her reign. If her story set your soul ablaze, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where forbidden hearts find their voice, and every legend is reborn in love. The world exhaled in silence. The war, the chaos, the roaring of gods, all fell still beneath the weight of dawn. Smoke clung to the air like the memory of pain refusing to die. Elara stood where the last of her fire had burned itself out, her breath shallow, her heartbeat slow. The ruins were quiet now, but the quiet wasn't peace, it was waiting. The kind of stillness that hides the pulse of something ancient, something unfinished. The Alpha scent still lingered in the air, wolf, steel, and regret. But he was gone, or perhaps she had gone too far for him to follow. The light from her hands had dimmed, leaving faint trails of silver across her skin, like veins of lightning frozen in flesh. She should have felt relief. She didn't. Victory was never clean, it always tasted of ash. A soft rumble beneath her feet broke the fragile stillness. At first, it was faint, like the earth turning in its sleep. Then, it deepened, spreading outward, a heartbeat too vast to belong to any mortal thing. The ground shifted, pebbles sliding down from the fractured pillars, dust rising from the ancient floor. Elara tensed, her fingers twitching, instinct calling the remnants of her flame to her command. But the air itself grew heavy, pressing down on her chest, stealing the breath from her lungs. From the center of the altar, the same one where she had stood to end the Shadow Alpha, something stirred. The cracks glowed red, veins of molten light crawling outward like a living wound reopening. The scent of sulfur mixed with the sweetness of burnt cedar. The air shimmered, warped, and the world itself seemed to bend around a sound, a low, guttural growl, deep and slow, resonating from beneath the stone. Elara stepped back. Her pulse raced. Her fire sparked against her palms, but it flickered, unstable, drained from the battle. No, she whispered. It can't be. The growl came again, louder now, vibrating through the ruins, through the bones of the earth. Then, silence. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Even the wind forgot how to move. Then, out of the fissure, a sliver of darkness rose. It wasn't smoke, and it wasn't shadow, it was something alive, something old enough to remember when the world still had teeth. It moved like liquid night, shaping itself into a form that wasn't yet whole. Two eyes opened within it, crimson and endless, staring straight through her. Every instinct screamed to run. But Elara didn't move. She met the gaze head-on. The world tilted around that stare, her vision fracturing. She saw flashes, visions, fragments that didn't belong to this moment. A battlefield of fire. Wolves kneeling in chains. The moon bleeding across the sky. And in the center, a throne of bone and ash, empty. Waiting. A voice emerged, not from the air, but from inside her head. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It slid between her thoughts like silk and smoke. The true Alpha hasn't risen, yet. Her pulse faltered. The ground seemed to tilt beneath her. Who are you? She breathed. The air shuddered in response. You call yourself queen, the voice hissed, slow, deliberate. But queens are crowned only when the king kneels. And I have not knelt. Elara's fire flared instinctively, bright and silver, cutting through the haze. The shadow recoiled, but not in fear, it trembled with amusement, its shape shifting, twisting into the faint outline of a beast vast enough to swallow light. You think your prophecy ended, the voice continued, now fractured into echoes that filled the ruins, overlapping until the words became almost a chant. You think your fire is freedom. But fire consumes. Elara stepped closer to the fissure, her hands trembling, her jaw tight. If you're what they feared, she said softly, then I've already faced worse. A low, mirthless sound rumbled from the shadow. It might have been laughter, or something like it. You haven't faced me. The fissure widened, a gust of hot wind bursting outward. Her cloak whipped violently around her as the ruins groaned beneath the pressure. She braced herself, her flame anchoring her to the ground. The voice grew sharper. The silver flame burns bright, but every flame casts a shadow. Her heart lurched at the words. The echo of prophecy returned to her, one the old seer had spoken long ago. When the flame and the fawn unite, the shadow stirs beneath. She had thought the shadow alpha was the end. She had been wrong. That battle had only woken something older. Something patient. Something bound beneath the same blood that had chosen her. The darkness surged upward, its form nearly complete now, massive shoulders, claws scraping against unseen stone, eyes burning like molten iron. But before it could rise fully, Elara's fire exploded outward, forming a barrier of silver light. The impact shook the ruins. For a moment, the darkness froze, straining against her light. Then it whispered again, soft this time, intimate, dangerous. You can't fight what you are. And with that, the shadow shattered into smoke, dispersing into the air. The fissure sealed itself with a final groan, leaving only silence and the faint scent of iron behind. Elara fell to her knees, the last of her energy spent. Her body trembled as the air cooled again, the world returning to its fragile balance. But something had changed, something deep beneath the earth, and within her. She could feel it. The mark on her palm burned faintly, the same mark the elders had carved into her as a child. The lines had shifted, taking on a new shape, a crescent wrapped in flame. She looked up at the sky. The moon was still pale, but its edges were red, as if it too had been watching. A thought pressed into her mind, uninvited and relentless, this isn't over. Her fire had restored the world's balance for now, but beneath it, something else was stirring, a force that would not be content to sleep forever. She rose slowly, the ache in her bones almost comforting. The ruins were quiet again, the dawn fully broken now, the sun casting long shadows across the cracked stone. Somewhere in the distance, she could still hear the faint howl of wolves, her wolves, the ones who would follow her into the next war, whether they understood it yet or not. But she knew what the voice had meant. The true alpha wasn't her. Not yet. Not until she faced the darkness buried in her own blood. The shadow alpha had been a god. This thing was worse, it was the reflection of everything she feared she might become. She turned toward the horizon where the mountains split the sky, the place where the wind still carried her name. Her silver flame flickered around her hand one last time, uncertain now, softer than before, as though it, too, was afraid. She clenched her fist, extinguishing it. Then let it come, she whispered. Whatever rises next, I'll be ready. The earth gave one final tremor, subtle but deep. Far below, beneath layers of rock and ruin, a faint pulse answered her words. A heartbeat. Slow. Patient. Eternal. The world was moving again. And as the light stretched across the ruins, Elara walked into the new dawn, alone, but unbroken. Her story wasn't finished. It had only just begun. To all who walk through fire for love. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections, where legends never die. And every ending is just the beginning of another heart reborn.